The hall was quiet, too quiet for a place where the galaxy's greatest powers met. The Galactic Council chamber floated above the blue planet Raylos, its silver walls shining like ice under a cold sun. There were hundreds of seats, each made for a different species. Some were tall, some wide, some made of crystal, some of living vines. But today, everyone noticed the same thing. One seat stood empty, the human seat. It had been empty for 2 years now, and still, no one had dared to touch it, not even to clean the dust. The metal around it was still dark gray, still warm to the memory of those who had sat there before. The humans had once spoken loudly in these chambers, offering help, warning others of danger, and sometimes arguing for hours. But now, silence had taken their place. A small alien with soft green skin and wide eyes leaned over to whisper to her neighbor, "Are they really gone?" Her voice was almost afraid. The neighbor didn't answer, just looked away and acted like he hadn't heard her. Many in the council wanted to believe the humans had simply lost interest. Maybe they had grown tired of wars, or politics, or the constant shouting between races. Some believed they had found a better place far away and decided not to return. But not all believed that. Some, like High Archivist Alana of the Dreven people, remembered too much to believe in peace. She was old, even by Dreven standards. Her skin shimmered like a pearl, and her eyes were deep and dark, full of history. She had seen the human ships in battle, ships made of black metal and glowing energy, tearing through enemy lines like they were paper. She had seen how quickly humans could move, how fast they could learn, how deep their emotions ran, and how terrifying they became when pushed too far. And now they were gone. Just gone. No messages, no warnings, no final goodbye. One day, their embassies closed. Their trade ships stopped coming. Their colonies went silent. Their great shipyards were abandoned. Their space stations powered down. People sent ships to Earth. But no one answered the calls. Earth was still there, but empty, or maybe just hiding. Satellites orbited silently, not letting anyone in, not letting anything out. The Zalani speaker, a tall creature with a body made of silver wires, stood and clicked his fingers together. The sound echoed through the hall. "Why do we still leave the human seat open?" he asked in a cold voice. "They chose to leave. Let us seal it and move on." Others nodded. They wanted to erase the memory, to stop feeling nervous every time they looked at that empty chair. But Alana stood slowly, and everyone turned to her. She spoke with calm, heavy words. "Do not forget what they did for us," she said. "When the Varn Empire burned across the stars, who stood beside us?" Silence followed her question. Everyone knew the answer. It had been the humans who came first, who fought hardest, who never asked for reward but left after the war with tired eyes. "They saw something," Alana continued. "Something in us. Or maybe something coming that we didn't see." She looked around the room, her gaze sharp and clear. "You say they're gone. I say they're watching." A chill spread across the room. No one wanted to believe the humans had left for a reason, a dark reason. No one wanted to believe they had seen something so terrible that they didn't want to warn the rest of the galaxy. In a control room far from the chamber, a quiet officer looked at a blinking screen. It was a message signal, simple and small, coming from an old satellite on the edge of human space. The signal said one word only: "Goodbye." The officer didn't know what to do, so she saved the file and sent it up the chain, hoping someone else would decide, hoping someone else would understand what it meant. Back in the council, the meeting ended, but the empty seat remained untouched. Even the bravest voices didn't dare sit there. One young captain from the Ilaran race walked past it slowly, his hand brushing the armrest. He felt something strange, like static electricity, but colder, deeper, like something ancient had passed through him. He didn't speak of it, not even when he returned to his ship. As ships flew away from the council station, stars blinked quietly in the background and far, far beyond them. In the coldest corners of the galaxy, something stirred, something old, something human, waiting in the dark, and though no one said it out loud. More than one council member went home that night with the same thought in their minds. What if the humans hadn't left to escape the galaxy? What if they had left to prepare for something worse? Something they didn't want anyone else to face. Something they hoped would never come, but if it did, they would be ready, and that thought scared everyone. The silence left by the humans was like a gap in the stars. At first, the council tried to carry on like nothing had happened. Meetings still happened, laws were still made, and trade still moved between the systems, but without the humans, things didn't feel the same. Their presence had always kept the balance, not because they were the strongest, but because they were unpredictable, clever, and dangerous when needed. Now with that danger gone, others started to rise. The Tren, a reptile-like species with sharp eyes and sharper minds, were the first to move. Their leader, Admiral Carrick, had waited years for this moment. With the humans gone, he saw no reason to hold back anymore. In secret, he started building more warships, training more soldiers, and taking over smaller colonies at the edge of Council space. When no one stopped him, he grew bold. He stood in the Council one day and declared, "We will take over the Soul Sector. The humans are gone, and they left it for us to claim." Many gasped, but no one stopped him, not even the peacekeepers. The council was weaker than it had ever been, divided by fear and greed. Some species supported Carrick, hoping to share in the power. Others stayed silent, afraid to speak against him. The few who tried to resist were quickly punished, their ships destroyed or their colonies surrounded, one by one. Voices that once stood for balance faded into the background, and the loudest ones now spoke of conquest, not peace. Carrick's fleet arrived in the Soul Sector with full force. Dozens of warships, glowing red and black, pushed through the void toward what was once Earth's domain. But when they arrived, they didn't find what they expected. The Earth was still quiet, still spinning, but no human ships came to defend it. No messages, no weapons firing, just silence. Carrick laughed and said, "See? They are cowards. They left everything behind. They are finished." But deep down, he felt uneasy. The silence felt too perfect, too clean. They explored the colonies first, Mars, Europa, the Titan stations, all empty, all lifeless. But everything was still in place, like people had just stepped away for a moment. There was food on tables, lights still on, systems still working, but not a single human to be found. It was as if they had vanished in one single breath. Carrick ordered his soldiers to search the systems, to look deeper, but they found nothing. No clues, no bodies, no escape pods, nothing. Then they entered an old human communication station. Near Saturn, it sighed. Dust floated slowly through the air, and the machines hummed softly, untouched. A group of Tren officers powered up the main console and found a message stored inside. It was old, but still clear. A woman in a dark blue uniform appeared on the screen. Her voice was calm, but her eyes looked tired. "This is Captain Riley of the Eclipse Horizon," she said. "If you're hearing this, it means we've left." She paused for a moment, then added, "Remember why?" The screen went black. The officers looked at each other, confused. What did she mean? Remember? Why? Carrick didn't care. He ordered the station to be taken apart, the message deleted. He didn't want questions, he wanted control. But one young Tren officer, Yalin, saved a copy of the message in secret. Something about it felt important. And he couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. Back at the council, reports started arriving. Some systems were losing power. Others reported strange errors in their navigational charts. One scout ship vanished near the border of human space. A few whispered that maybe, just maybe, the humans hadn't really gone. Maybe they were hiding, watching, waiting, but those voices were ignored or silenced quickly by those in power. No one wanted to admit fear, not now, not after mocking the humans for being gone. But Alana, the old Drevan archivist, listened to those whispers. She read the reports, looked at the signal data, and began piecing together a larger picture. She saw the patterns, the same silent signals repeating in different areas, the same energy waves near every disappearance. It matched the frequency of old human cloaking systems, systems the Council had once tried to copy, but failed. She wrote a report and sent it to Commander Noah Blake, one of the few peace officers who still cared about the truth. She wrote only this: "Go to the old relay station near Signari Drift, and you'll understand everything." Blake took the message seriously. He was one of the few who had worked with humans before. He remembered their sharp minds, their strange sense of humor, and their terrifying calm in battle. He took his ship, the Silverwake, and left in secret, carrying only a small crew and a growing feeling in his chest, fear, not of the enemy, but of what he might find. As the ship disappeared into the black, the Council continued its debates, its power struggles, and its prideful blindness. But something was shifting in the dark corners of space. Something old, quiet, and human, and it has started to wake up. The peace that once covered the galaxy like a thin blanket was gone. One by one, the stars were catching fire. Whole systems were falling into chaos. And the ones responsible were not just old enemies. They were something new, something worse. Krav arrived like a storm from the edge of the known universe. They did not come with warnings or demands. They came in silence, then destroyed everything in their path. Their ships were black and sharp, like knives cutting through space. Their weapons were not like any the Council had seen before. They melted steel and crushed shields with ease. Council ships were no match. One after another, they fell, burning in the cold darkness of space. At first, the Council thought it was a small attack force. But soon they realized it was just the beginning. The Krav didn't just want resources, they wanted domination. They attacked trade routes, mining colonies, communication hubs, and even capital worlds. Planets with millions of people were turned to ashen days. Panic spread faster than the enemy. The Council begged for unity, but it was too late. Some races blamed each other, others tried to run, but no one had the strength to stop what was coming. The Council's army, weak and disorganized since the humans left, crumbled in front of the Krav. The ones who survived started whispering a name they hadn't spoken in years: humanity. The ones who had once stopped the Varn, the ones who had built weapons beyond imagination, the ones who had warned them to be ready in a private chamber. Above a dying moon, Commander Noah Blake stood with a group of senior officers. The message from Alana still played in his mind. "You'll find answers there, or we all burn." He had followed her coordinates to a place forgotten by time, the old human relay station floating near the Signari Drift. His ship, the Silver Wake, now hovered beside the silent structure. The station looked dead, its lights were off, and its outer shell was covered in dust and space debris. But its systems were still active, hidden beneath layers of encryption. Blake's crew worked hard to unlock the codes. Inside, they found something that made their hearts freeze: human tech logs, battle maps, and a warning file marked Class Red Threat, Krav. It was dated 10 years before the first Krav attack. Blake stared at the file, unable to believe it. The humans had known. They had seen the Krav coming long before anyone else. And instead of sharing it, they had chosen silence, or maybe distance. The file explained that the Krav were not natural. They were made, grown in labs on the edge of the galaxy, a mix of biology and technology, built to be the perfect war race. But who made them? The answer was even darker, hidden deep. Inside the file was a report, marked with a human seal. It said the Krav were created using stolen research, human research. Someone in the Galactic Council had taken human war science, twisted it, and created the Krav without understanding the cost. That secret had now become their doom. Blake knew this information could destroy the Council, but he also knew they had no time. The Krav were moving toward the core systems, and the Council didn't stand a chance without help. He sent a message to Ilana, telling her everything. She replied quickly, "Then there's only one thing left to do. Find the last human outpost. She attached coordinates, even deeper into forgotten space as Blake prepared to leave. A small fleet of Grav ships appeared near their position. His crew jumped into action, raising shields and charging weapons. But the Krav didn't fire, they just waited, watching. Their ships moved in strange patterns, almost like they were scanning. One of Blake's officers whispered, "It's like they're searching for something." Blake narrowed his eyes. "Or someone," he said softly. The Krav left as suddenly as they came, not firing a single shot. Just silence again. But that silence now carried meaning. The Krav weren't just hunting ships, they were hunting knowledge. Hunting history, maybe even hunting humans. Blake knew now, more than ever, that the only way to stop this war was to find out where the humans had gone. Meanwhile, in the heart of the council, panic turned to fear, and fear turned to rage. Some blamed the Tren, others blamed the Zalani. Some even dared to blame the humans for leaving, saying this was all their fault. But the truth sat quietly in Alana's hands, the report Blake had sent. She stood alone in her chamber, looking at the human seal on the screen. She whispered to herself, "You saw all of this coming, didn't you?" She looked out the window at the stars. "What did we do that made you leave?" Her voice trembled. "And what will happen if you never come back?" Her question went unanswered, but far beyond the council's reach, something ancient stirred. A light blinked in the void, and somewhere in that darkness, a human ship turned toward the galaxy once more. And this time, they weren't coming to talk. The stars in the Zero's belt didn't shine like others. They flickered coldly, as if they had seen too much. Here, among broken moons and silent rocks, floated the graveyard of forgotten warships. Long ago, this place had seen one of the biggest battles during the War of the Varn. Hundreds of ships had fallen here, and many were still drifting, empty and dark, like frozen ghosts. Commander Noah Blake stood on the bridge of the Silver Wake, looking through the glass at the wreckage field. It stretched for miles in every direction, sharp metal, shattered hulls, and forgotten weapons turning slowly in zero gravity. His crew worked quietly, their voices low, even though there was no one out there to hear them. The silence of the place felt heavy, like a secret waiting to be told. Ilana's coordinates had led them here, to this quiet graveyard. The signal was faint, buried deep inside one of the wrecks, but it wasn't coming from any normal ship. It came from something massive, something that didn't match the old battle records. The ship's ID finally came through, and Blake stared at it in shock. "The Halcyon Wind," he said out loud. His second in command, Lena Brooks, turned sharply. "That can't be right. That ship was a myth." Blake nodded slowly. "Or maybe that's what they wanted us to think." The Halcyon Wind was one of the last Dreadnought-class ships built by humans before they vanished. According to legend, it had never seen battle, never fired a shot, and had simply disappeared. Now it was here, hidden in the shadows of 1,000 broken ships. They sent a small team over, suited up in heavy armor. The outside of the Halcyon was covered in old scars, but the hull was still strong. It looked like it had just been parked here and left to sleep. The boarding crew entered through a side hatch, lights flickering on as they walked. The air inside was thin, cold, but still breathable. Machines hummed quietly in the background. Systems still alive after all these years. They made their way to the command bridge, passing empty halls and sealed doors. No bodies, no signs of panic. Just silence and stillness on the bridge. The captain's chair faced a wide star window, and in front of it, a control panel blinked, still waiting for a command. The screen lit up with one simple message: "Last order, stand by." Blake stepped forward and entered his clearance code. The ship accepted it immediately, like it had been waiting for someone who remembered the old ways. A hidden file opened, and a video log began to play on the screen. A woman in a dark uniform appeared, Captain Riley, older now, her face harder, eyes deeper. She spoke calmly. "If you're watching this, then the Council has failed, and the Krav have returned," she said. She went on to explain everything. The humans had known about the Krav years ago. They had found traces of the secret experiments. They had warned the Council in hidden messages. But no one listened, so they made a choice to vanish, to pull back from the galaxy and prepare, not for a new war, but for a final one. They built secret stations outside the galaxy's edge. They called them Safe Ark's massive space cities, hidden from sensors, filled with people, knowledge, and weapons the galaxy had never seen. The Halcyon Wind was left behind on purpose, not as a weapon, but as a test. A sign that if the galaxy ever needed them again, someone would find it and remember. Blake felt a cold weight in his chest. The humans hadn't abandoned the galaxy. They had simply stopped trusting it. He looked around the bridge of the great ship and whispered, "They knew we'd come here. They knew we'd fail without them." Lena stood beside him, eyes wide. "So what do we do now?" she asked. "We bring this ship back to life," Blake replied. His crew went to work, rebooting systems, repairing old circuits, and connecting the ship's core to the Silver Wake. As power returned to the Halcyon, lights turned on across every hallway. Engines hummed, weapons came online, and deep inside the ship, a sleeping eye woke up. "Welcome back, Commander," it said in a calm voice. "Do you wish to activate defense mode?" Blake hesitated, then nodded. "Yes, prepare for war." Outside, the graveyard of old ships remained still, but now among them, one had woken up. A ship not meant for normal battles, but for something greater, something darker, as the Halcyons. Engines warmed up. A signal was sent quietly across deep space. It wasn't a cry for help. It was a whisper. A message to something waiting far beyond the stars. In a place where no maps reached, other ships blinked online. Ships with no flags, no nations, only one purpose. Humanity had left because they saw what was coming. But now, they were ready. And the galaxy had no idea what was about to return. The galaxy had grown quiet in the wrong way. Not peaceful, just scared. The Krav were everywhere now, moving in huge waves, burning and crushing every system in their path. No race could stop them. No fleet could slow them. Every day, another planet went dark. Cities disappeared. Colonies vanished. And whole species began to fall back, hoping to hide, hoping to survive. The Council begged for help. They sent out desperate messages to ancient allies, to forgotten treaties, but no one answered. No one wanted to face the Krav. Some said it was the end of the galaxy. Others whispered about legends, old stories, the ones that began with, "When the humans were here." Then something strange happened at the edge of Krav space. Near the ruined system of Kylon 9, sensors picked up unknown movement. A fleet had appeared out of nowhere, no signal, no warnings, no flags. The Krav sent a scout force to investigate. 5 ships, each powerful enough to destroy a small moon, moved in formation toward the unknown blips. They never returned, not one, not even a message, just silence. Then 2 hours later, the same unknown fleet entered the Rican Belt, right in the heart of a Krav-controlled region. Dozens of Krav warships were stationed there, guarding supply routes and command bases. They were ready, fully armed, prepared to destroy anything that came close. But within 10 minutes, every Krav ship in that region was gone, not just destroyed, but erased. No wreckage, no escape pods, just empty space where a fleet had been. The Galactic Council heard about this within hours. Panic turned into confusion. Some thought it was a new enemy. Others feared the Krav had created something worse. But Alana, the old archivist, listened to the sensor recordings, watched the strange energy patterns, and smiled. She knew those patterns. She had seen them once long ago, during the last war with the Varn. They were old human tech, upgraded, stronger, cleaner, and far more dangerous. She stood up during the next council meeting and said, "They've returned." Everyone stared at her. "Who?" Someone asked. "The humans," she whispered. "But they're not the same." Out near the Rican Belt, one of the returning ships hovered in silence. Its name was written in sharp blue lines on the hull seraph's edge. Its design was Nothing like the old Council warships. It was sleek, quiet, and almost seemed to move without effort. The inside was dark metal, glowing lines of blue and gold running through every corridor like veins. On the bridge stood Captain Riley, her face older, her eyes colder. She looked at the screen in front of her, showing the remains of the Krav fleet she had just erased. Her crew stood ready, each one calm and focused. They had done this before, many times, in hidden wars no one ever knew about. "We don't answer their calls," she said firmly. "We don't explain. We came back for one reason: to end this." Her officers nodded. They had left the galaxy to prepare for this moment. Now it had arrived. Across dozens of systems, human ships began to appear, each time. They arrived without warning. Each time they destroyed the Krav completely. Some were massive dreadnoughts, some small strike vessels, but all carried the same cold silence, the same deadly precision. They used no missiles, no lasers like the old days. Instead, they used energy fields that melted ships from the inside, weapons that turned sound into weapons, and stealth so perfect not even light could follow them. In one Council-controlled region, a group of diplomats tried to make contact. They broadcasted peaceful messages, hoping the humans would talk. They got only one reply. A single message appeared on every screen, written in human standard. "You forgot who made the stars quiet." Then nothing. Commander Noah Blake, still aboard the reactivated Halcyon Wind, tracked the movements of these new human ships with awe and disbelief. "They're not coming to speak," Lena said beside him. "They're coming to clean up." Blake nodded slowly. But he wasn't afraid, not like the others. He understood now. Humanity had never abandoned the galaxy. They had just left it to grow on its own. But the galaxy had failed, and now the Guardians had returned. From his command deck, Blake sent a coded signal using one of the ancient frequencies. Only the old human allies would know. To his surprise, one of the returning ships paused, turned, and began to approach. The screen blinked to life, showing the face of a woman, tired but calm. It was Captain Grace Monroe. "We remember you," she said to Blake. "You listened when others mocked us." Blake stepped forward, his voice steady. "Why now?" he asked. "Why return?" Grace didn't smile. "Because the test is over," she said. "And the galaxy failed." Then the screen went black. Blake stood in silence, the weight of her words heavy in the air. Outside his window, the stars seemed to shift, as if they, too, felt the return of something ancient, something powerful, something human. And for the first time in a long while, the galaxy knew fear not of the Krav, but of the ones who had come back. The stars seemed different now, as if they were watching. No one said it out loud, but across the galaxy, fear had changed shape. It was no longer just the Krav that frightened the Council. It was the humans, because they were back, and they were not the same. They came without flags, without greetings, and without mercy. They attacked the Krav with speed and strength the galaxy had never seen. Their ships did not make noise. Their weapons left no debris, just silence. Everywhere they appeared, the Krav disappeared, not just defeated, but completely removed, like they had never been there. But even though they saved entire systems, the humans did not answer messages. They didn't speak to the Council. They didn't take planets or ask for land. They came, destroyed, and vanished into the black inside. The Council chamber. Members argued louder than ever. Some said the humans were heroes. Others said they were monsters. One voice stood in the middle: Ilana, the archivist. She didn't scream. She didn't beg. She stood calmly and said, "They are here to judge us." No one believed her. Not fully, but some listened. Commander Noah Blake watched the events from the bridge of the Halcyon Wind. His ship was fully awake now, engines glowing with quiet power. His crew had changed too, more alert, more serious. They had seen the returning human fleets with their own eyes. They had felt the strange mix of hope and fear they brought. Blake sent message after message, trying to contact one of the human ships again. Days passed with no answer. Then finally one of them responded, a small scout vessel, shaped like a Needle of light moved beside the halcyon. A single channel opened. And on the screen appeared a face he hadn't seen in years. Grace, he whispered. Grace Monroe looked the same, but different. Her face was calm, but her eyes had a weight in them, a deep tiredness. You shouldn't have called us, she said softly. But I did, Blake answered. Because the council is breaking. The Krav are still out there, and only you can stop this. Grace didn't answer right away. She looked around his bridge, looked at his crew, then said, "And after we stop it, then what? Do you think we'll go back to sitting in those chambers again, arguing with fools?" Blake stayed quiet. He knew she was right. The council had failed, not just once but many times. They had ignored warnings, betrayed allies, and buried truth. And now they were asking for help from the very people they had pushed away. Grace looked into the screen again. "We watched all of it," she said. "Every mistake, every broken treaty, every lie. We stayed silent, waiting, hoping you would grow." She paused, her voice cold. "But you didn't." Blake tried to speak, but she continued. "We gave the galaxy a gift piece, and you wasted it. We left because we believed you could handle it on your own. Now we return, not as friends, not as enemies, but as the final measure." Blake swallowed hard. "Is there no chance to fix things?" Grace shook her head slowly. That chance died when the council tried to build the Krav. The screen went black. Blake sat in silence, his crew too afraid to speak. The truth was heavy, but it was clear. The Krav had not come from nowhere. They were made by someone inside the council, using stolen human tech. Their goal was to replace the power humans once held. But they had created a monster they couldn't control now. Humanity had come back, not to lead but to clean up the mess. In another system, the human dreadnought Stormcall hovered near a burning Krav base. It didn't fire, just watched, on the ground. Council soldiers looked up in fear, wondering if the humans would strike them too, but the ship turned and left, leaving behind only a message on every screen. "Fix what you broke, or we will." The message spread fast. Everyone read it, and everyone understood. The humans had returned as watchers, not rulers. They were giving the galaxy one last chance to fix its own problems. In secret, Ilana met with Blake. They spoke quietly, afraid of who might be listening. "You were right," she said. "They're not here to save us. They're here to see if we deserve to be saved." Blake nodded. "Then we have to prove that we do." Ilana handed him an old scroll, Human Laws, written during the time of peace. "Start here," she said. "Bring the truth to the people, not just the council." Blake took the scroll and left outside the station. Stars continued to shine cold and distant. Somewhere in that darkness, thousands of human ships waited. Silent and deadly, not for orders, not for thanks, but for judgment. And in every corner of the galaxy, that judgment had already begun. Far from the fighting, deep in the old archives of the Galactic Council, hidden behind security walls and forgotten files, a secret was finally uncovered. Ilana sat alone in the silent chamber, her fingers shaking as she read the final parts of the hidden report. The truth was worse than she ever imagined. The Krav were not just an accident, they were a creation. A secret project started by a group of powerful council members after the humans left. These leaders were afraid, not of war, but of weakness, without the humans to protect them. They believed the galaxy would fall, so they tried to build something to replace human power, to create the next super weapon race. They stole old human research, copied it in secret labs, twisted it, changed it, until something new was born, the Krav. But the creators made one deadly mistake. They gave the Krav too much freedom, too much hate. The Krav turned on their makers and burned everything they touched. Then they kept spreading, growing, and now they couldn't be stopped. Ilana's eyes filled with tears. "We did this," she whispered. "We are the reason the galaxy is dying." She sent the full report to Commander Blake, knowing it might destroy everything. But the truth had to come out. Blake read it in silence on the bridge of the Halcyon Wind. His crew stood still, staring at the screen. No one saying a word. So, the council created the monster, Lena said slowly. And now they want the humans to clean it up. Blake nodded, his voice cold. And they never planned to take the blame. He opened a direct channel to the council. No more hiding. No more secrets. In the council chamber, the message played for every member to hear. Images filled the room. Krav labs. Secret council meetings, stolen human files. Ilana stood beside the screen and confirmed everything. This is what we did, she said. And now, the ones we abandoned are the only ones who can save us. The chamber erupted in chaos. Some shouted for forgiveness, others for justice. A few tried to deny it, but the evidence was too strong. The people of the galaxy began to rise up. Citizens demanded answers, demanded change. Whole planets refused to follow council orders, calling for a new leadership, one based on truth, not lies. And through it all, the humans watched. Ships floated above battle-worn systems, dark and silent, never speaking unless they had to. They moved like ghosts, ending Krav fleets in seconds, then disappearing again. They never touched civilian planets, never claimed territory. They simply cleaned up the mess, then moved on one small planet. A council captain tried to speak to a human ground team. "Thank you for saving us," he said. But the human commander didn't answer. She just looked at him and replied, "Save yourselves." Then her team vanished into their ship, and the sky swallowed them up. Blake knew what that meant. The humans were still testing them, watching their choices, judging their actions. Ilana sent him another message. If we want to survive, we must do more than beg for help. We must change. Blake agreed. He began organizing independent fleets, not human, not council, but made of volunteers. People who wanted to defend their worlds, not for power, but for peace. People across the galaxy began to follow. Old enemies joined hands. Soldiers became builders. Destroyed systems started to rebuild. Slowly, hope returned, not because the humans saved them, but because they began saving themselves. But the question still remained, why had the humans left in the first place? Ilana kept digging through old human messages, old warnings, and finally, she found something. A pattern. It wasn't just about the Krav, it was something bigger, something coming. She sent the data to Blake. They didn't just leave because of us, she said. They left because they saw what's next. Blake stared at the file's energy spikes beyond the edge of the galaxy. Signals older than any race, like something waking up. He looked out into space, thinking, what did the humans see? And what were they still hiding? The Krav were a crisis, yes, but maybe they were only the beginning. Maybe the real threat was still on its way, and the humans had been preparing for it all along. The council had finally started to break down, not from war, but from the truth. Some members stepped down. Others were arrested. New voices rose, younger, braver. They didn't trust the old ways anymore. They wanted something real, something stronger than fear. And high above, orbiting in silence, human ships kept watching. Their lights cold, their weapons silent. They had returned not as leaders, not as conquerors, but as judges, as protectors from the shadows, and as reminders of what happens when truth is buried and pride replaces wisdom across the stars. One question now burned brighter than any sun. Had the galaxy truly learned its lesson? Or was this just the beginning of something even worse? The galaxy was never the same after the truth came out. The great halls of the Galactic Council were quiet now. The leaders who had hidden secrets were gone. Some arrested, some disappeared. Others fled into the stars. The council itself was broken, its power shattered like glass. Citizens across many planets demanded new ways, new leaders who would not hide anything. Commander Noah Blake left the council chambers quietly. He felt the weight of everything on his shoulders, the burden of secrets, lies, and lost time. He looked out at the stars from his ship, the halcyon wind, and wondered if the galaxy could ever heal. His crew was silent, sharing the same question, but somewhere deep inside, Blake believed hope still lived, far beyond the known systems. In the darkest edges of space, human ships floated silently, watching, waiting, their lights small and cold against the blackness. These ships were different, now not just weapons of war, but guardians, sentinels guarding the future of many worlds. Their crews were not just soldiers, but teachers, builders, and watchers. They carried the legacy of humanity's choice to leave, to prepare, and to protect. One of these ships hovered over a small green planet no one had named yet. There, children played under strange stars that no other race had ever seen. They laughed and ran freely, their eyes bright with curiosity and hope. These children were human, born far from Earth, raised among stars unknown. They knew nothing of the wars, the lies, or the Council's failures. Their world was a new beginning. A promise that life could survive even in the darkest places. Back in the heart of the galaxy, changes were happening fast. The new leaders, young and determined, worked to rebuild trust. They created open councils where every race could speak. Not just the powerful, but the small, the forgotten, and the weak. They shared knowledge, helped each other, and promised never to hide from the truth again. It was not easy, and the wounds were deep, but it was the only way forward. Blake spoke, often with Alana, their conversations full of plans and hopes. The humans left not because they gave up, she said, but because they believed we had to learn to stand on our own. Blake nodded. And now they watch to see if we truly have, Alana smiled softly. We have to prove ourselves worthy. Their words carried the hope of millions, yet even with all this change, the galaxy knew one truth: humanity was no longer just a distant memory. They were a living force, silent and powerful, ready to act if the galaxy again faced danger. No one knew exactly when they would fully return, if they ever would, but everyone knew the galaxy could not take them for granted again. In one quiet moment, Blake stood alone on the observation deck. Staring into the void, he thought about the long journey wars fought, secrets revealed, and lives changed. He wondered if the galaxy would finally be ready for peace, or if it would repeat its old mistakes. His hand rested lightly on the cold glass as a single star blinked far away, and for the first time in years, he felt something like calm. The galaxy was spinning, moving forward, watched over by silent eyes from the stars. The story of humanity was not just about war or power, but about hope, judgment, and the chance to grow stronger together. Somewhere, beyond the edges of maps and charts, new stars were born, new lives began, and the future waited quietly, patiently, and in that quiet waiting, the galaxy held its breath, wondering, had it earned its place among the stars?